Good evening, everybody. Our top stories tonight. Shocking new evidence revealing just how closely the entire Russia witch hunt is linked to the bogus Trump dossier. That dossier, authored by the smear merchants Fusion GPS and former MI6 agent Christopher Steele. New testimony reveals DOJ official Bruce Orr shared intel and information from the dossier's author with prosecutors. Some of those prosecutors would go on to become top deputies to special counsel Robert Mueller. At the time, Bruce Orr making it clear that the phony document was nothing more than politically motivated opposition research funded by allies of the Clinton campaign and the DNC. We take up the implications of these latest revelations. Two of the best legal minds in the country joining us tonight. Attorneys Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGeneva. Also tonight, Nancy Pelosi, schooled in the perils of playing political games with President Trump. The speaker, smug, self-satisfied this morning as she prepared to depart on a boondoggle, bragging that the president had no response to her demand he delay his State of the Union address because of security concerns.
I'm not denying the platform at all. We're saying let's get a date when government is open. But we haven't heard, very silent, more than 24 hours to your question that you ask me every time I step out of the office. Have you heard? No, we haven't heard yet.
Well, she heard this afternoon. President Trump stopped Pelosi and her radical Dem cohorts about to go off on their little excursion in their tracks. You're looking at a U.S. Air Force bus that was supposed to take the congressional members on a junket trip overseas. The bus was to head for the airport and a military aircraft that would take them on their way. But the president stopping all of it, postponing, as he said, the trip, suggesting lawmakers' time would be better spent in Washington while they look for a solution with him to open the government and end the humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
And they're on the way up, thousands and thousands of people. We don't know where they're from, who they are, nothing. We need strong borders. We need strong barriers and walls. Nothing else is going to work. Everyone knows it. Everybody's saying it now. It's just a question of time. While many Democrats in the House and Senate would like to make a deal, Speaker Pelosi will not let them negotiate. The party has been hijacked by the open borders fringe within the party, the radical left becoming the radical Democrats. Hopefully, Democrat lawmakers will step forward to do what is right for our country.
Well, they don't appear to be prepared to do so soon. As the shutdown continues and the political battle in Washington rages, the next migrant caravan is headed for the United States, creating considerable chaos in Guatemala, where authorities resorted to tear gas trying to bring the unruly and rioting members of that caravan under control. We take up the clash between a president determined to build a border security wall and a Democratic Party in total disarray. Republican strategist Ed Rollins, Washington Times opinion editor Charlie Hurt among our guests here tonight. Our top story, new evidence tonight that the corrupt leadership of the FBI and the Department of Justice knew all about the links between the smear merchants, Fusion GPS, and the Clintons and the Democratic Party. And yet they used that phony dossier to launch a witch hunt against the president. Fox News chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Herridge with the report.
Lou, the testimony from Justice Department official Bruce Orr matters because it moves up the timeline to the summer of 2016, 3 months before the FBI and Justice Department secured a surveillance warrant for a Trump campaign aide. And the testimony shows that Orr shared the information about the dossier and its author, Christopher Steele, with senior officials, including 2 prosecutors now with the special counsel. According to the transcript from Orr's closed-door interview last summer on Capitol Hill, he shared the intelligence with then FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, FBI agent Peter Strzok, FBI lawyer Lisa Page, and with senior Justice Department officials Bruce Schwartz, Zainab Ahmed, and Andrew Weissman. The last two, Ahmed and Weissman, are now assigned to special counsel Robert Mueller. According to the transcript, Orr was clear that he could not vouch for the credibility of the anti-Trump dossier. And he made clear that its author, British spy Christopher Steele, was, quote, desperate to stop Trump from winning the election. And the dossier was funded by the Clinton campaign. Last summer, Orr did not take reporter questions. At what point did you tell the FBI that Christopher Steele had an animus against candidate Trump? Mr. Orr, did you tell the FBI that Steele had an animus towards Trump before the first FISA application? Mr. Orr, will you answer any of our questions after the session? Orr also told House investigators that his wife, Nellie, worked for the opposition research firm Fusion GPS that was behind the dossier project, and that he gave the FBI 2 thumb drives, one from his wife and the second from Glenn Simpson, the co-founder of Fusion GPS. Lou?
Catherine, thank you very much. Catherine Herridge reporting, joining us now to take up the revelation that the Justice Department official, Bruce Orr, shared that information about the discredited dossier with the FBI's Andrew Weissman and others. At the time, Weissman was the head of the fraud section. Now he's a senior member of the special counsel's office, or witch hunt, if you prefer. Victoria Tensing, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division of Justice, and Joe DeGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, founding partners of the firm DeGenova and Tensing. Good to have you both with us. And let's start with this. We sort of had an indication of this throughout. But this revelation now is raising all sorts of questions. One is, it seems designed in part, at least to me, to make Orr look better. But it certainly is damning to the top officials of the FBI. Your thoughts? Let's begin with you, Victoria.
Well, he only looks slightly better, Lou, because I think he is protecting Sally Yates. He was Sally Yates' deputy, and yet he claims that he never said this to Sally Yates. This needs to go to a grand jury where Bruce Orr and Sally Yates are both brought in to say whether he told her or not. And then, for those of us who know the Justice Department, it's odd. And John Solomon's such a good reporter. His facts are accurate, but here's what's wrong at the Justice Department.
John Solomon reporting for The Hill.
This is his story, right? This is his story. I was Deputy Assistant Attorney General. I did not brief section chiefs and line attorneys. They are not senior Justice Department officials. Those kinds of people briefed me. So why is Orr briefing people lower on the totem pole than he? And here's what else is wrong. He's briefing Andrew Weissman. Andrew Weissman's the head of the fraud section, as you just reported. I supervised the fraud section. It has nothing to do with FISA applications. So what was he doing there, unless he was a Clintonista to find out all kinds of things? There's
not
something
a part
strange.
of what would be a counter espionage or counterintelligence operation, or in any way associated with the National Security Division.
Out of his portfolio, completely. So more than the Congress lying about what was said, that's more of the story.
This is a story, Joe, as we all know, that goes on, and with the names that have been fired and transferred and demoted, and I mean, and on the list goes, at the top of the Justice Department, but primarily at the Department, the FBI. There's no prosecution. There's nothing happening here. This is an entire deep state, it seems, at least to most of us observing from a distance, that is purely to run out the clock and to deny justice, not to bring anyone to justice.
Well, I think that's all going to change when Bill Barr becomes the Attorney General. I expect him to authorize grand juries into all of this if they're not already being conducted, and to make them robust if they are not robust now, and to replace people who are not doing their jobs, including Mr. Huber. What's fascinating about the Orr testimony is that he now establishes as a fact that the FBI was told before the first application for a FISA warrant that the information was unverified, unreliable, and that Christopher Steele had an animus toward the President of the United States and that they needed to be careful. And we know that they were not careful. What he has done through his testimony is established that there was a cabal, that the FBI senior officials and senior DOJ officials wanted to get Donald Trump regardless of the evidence, and they wanted to spy on him, and they succeeded in doing so by lying to a FISA court, which has now been established, and committing federal felonies in doing so. I expect Attorney General Barr, when he is confirmed, to impanel a grand jury to investigate all of this.
Do you, let's get your opinion on this. William Barr, a man with a reputation for integrity and effectiveness, do you think he understands that this is a time in which the FBI has zero credibility with the American public, zero regard for the integrity, and I'm talking about from field agents through the top officials, unfairly in some cases, but for the top leadership of the FBI, the Department of Justice, it is a quagmire of corruption.
I think he knows that the Department of Justice and the FBI, its most important component, are at an historic low in public respect and esteem. He knows that the senior people of the Obama DOJ and FBI have destroyed an institution for two reasons: to protect Hillary Clinton and to destroy Donald Trump and to destroy his presidency. This is, in fact, the greatest political scandal in the history of our country. And I expect Bill Barr to do what he has always done. He will enforce the law equally, but he will also ensure that the DOJ and the FBI are rooted out of people who have subverted the rule of law.
And let me tell you what else Bill has. He has a love of the law. And those of us who've been at the Justice Department feel the same.
I hope we have somebody that has a
for
love for this country and for the American people.
But that is the love for the law, Lou.
They have been, this is just stomach churning to look at the level of corruption.
And those of us who love the law are just so upset about what is happening, and Bill Barr is one of them.
All right.
And he will do a fine job.
All right. Victoria, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Joe, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Up next, President Trump postpones Nancy Pelosi's overseas trip until the government shutdown is over, and the left losing its mind at the postponement from the president.
It's petty, it's small, it's vindictive.
This is a depressing additional step farther down in what is a interpersonal stare down, a spat between the Speaker of the House and the President.
The President has acted like he's in the 5th grade.
Clearly, we do not have an adult in the White House.
This is the President essentially being a man baby all over again.
Oh, what biting language. Terrible. The President reminding everybody what a president can do when provoked. And Pelosi has been about as provocative as anyone should ever have to put up with. We'll have a lot more. Take it all up after the break. Ed Rollins joins me. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Message and standing back from any effort to solve the crisis along our southern border or a plan to end the partial government shutdown. Since leaving the White House 8 days ago, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have been so ineffective and such failed leaders of the opposition party. They now have the House Majority Leader breaking ranks and contradicting their weak, silly arguments that, the quote, walls don't work or are, as Pelosi insists, immoral.
Look, I don't think this is an issue of morality. It's an issue of does it work? A wall that protects people is not immoral.
So they work some places.
Obviously, they work some places.
Do you think a wall or barrier is racist?
I don't talk in those terms.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way we ought to look at it.
And seizing on the left's instability, President Trump today accused the Speaker of tying the hands of Democrats who actually want a solution and would bargain in good faith.
The federal government remains shut down because congressional Democrats refuse to approve border security. We're going to have border security. It's going to be tight. It's going to be strong.
Well, adding to the political gamesmanship and drama today, the president denied access to military aircraft for Speaker Pelosi and her gang of colleagues just minutes before they were supposed to leave for Afghanistan, Egypt, and Brussels. And in a letter, the president wrote this to the speaker. Quote, obviously, if you would like to make your journey by flying commercial, that would certainly be your prerogative. Today's decision comes after Pelosi, of course, requested the State of the Union to be postponed. The president echoing that language today, saying Speaker Pelosi's trip has simply been postponed, not canceled. The White House insists today's actions are not a response, a quid pro quo, but rather the president saying the nation would be far better served by the speaker staying at home to negotiate an end to the government shutdown. The House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy, agreed with the president.
Being Speaker of the House and leaving the country when it's shut down, I don't think that's appropriate, especially the Speaker thinks we shouldn't even have the State of the Union. I think the best thing that could happen, and everybody could calm a little bit, get in a room together, and put the American people first before their travels and solve the problem.
The White House also announcing tonight it will not send a delegation to the World Economic Summit in Davos. Oh, my goodness. What a terrible, terrible disappointment that is. As the shutdown of the government continues, President Trump withdrew the delegation from the trip to Davos. Joining us tonight, former Reagan White House political director, Fox Business political analyst Ed Rollins. Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
I've got to compliment the president. Getting people out of Davos is the right thing to do. Why would a populist president want to send a delegation to that elitist, global elitist confab where everybody's paying for the privilege of being there? It's a ridiculous waste of time and money.
Well, I totally agree with that, and I think the reality is it's not a valuable asset anymore. It's a lot of little deals are done by businesses behind the closed doors, but they can do that anyway.
Businesses spend millions to sit there and hobnob, and and the Trump delegation would certainly be, or the congressional delegation. They're just props for the for the Davos Forum, feeding at the trough of corporate.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, at the end of the day, here they need to be back here doing their jobs. Those government officials were going to go. So
I love the president's letter to Nancy Pelosi. He had to postpone the use of military aircraft during the shutdown. I just love that, and I love the fact that the left. Suddenly it's petty if you want to respond to a provocation from the speaker. I think this president will likely demonstrate the full power of the president's responding to this nonsense from the speaker.
As this thing came across the wire today, I chuckled because I used to sit in the White House and members of Congress would come over and they'd say, I'm the constitutional equal of the President of the United States. And I said, no, you're not. Go get the 434 other members of Congress and come back, and then you're the constitutional equal of the President of the United States. The President basically has all the power. He showed the power today. Well, he showed the power today. The Speaker is the person who basically runs, allegedly, the House. But she is not the House. She represents the House, and she should be representing the House in these meetings. But the idea that she would go away on a secret trip not announced, and why she's going to Afghanistan when she's never supported anything in Afghanistan since
she probably wants to negotiate with the Taliban.
17 years that we've been there. I don't think she's ever voted for a bill. I don't think she's ever been a supporter. For her to go on a PR tour, I think the president did exactly the right thing. And this is going to go down from a historical perspective as one of the great stories.
I love the fact that this president is just giving her hell and what for that outrageous attack by the speaker. I mean, she likes to play politics. The president will be able to school her before it's done. No question.
He certainly did today, and you can imagine I would not want to be on the speaker's staff today when the bus pulled up and they said, no, sorry, there's no plane for you. Dulles, you got to go commercial. And flying Air Afghanis can't be a great pleasure.
In the minority leader, McCarthy supporting the president. Lindsey Graham, what is going on with this guy?
sitting at the chairman's chair apparently is getting to his head. I mean, he's been very supportive of the president the last couple of months, and I don't know what's going on today. They all pop off and they say things they shouldn't be saying. You know,
name 3 others that pop off half as much.
Well,
as,
no one. I mean,
Graham,
you know, because they put a camera in his face every day.
Man.
Every day he feels he has to talk, so and say things that aren't very relevant. And today it wasn't any of his business. And bottom, you know, it just was. If you're going to be supportive of the president, you need to be supportive of the president.
AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, taking her band of minions, fellow freshmen, to Mitch McConnell's office. Hashtag where's Mitch? You got to admire her tactics.
I made the mistake on this show, which I've since apologized for, but that I called her. You know, the reality is she's going to be a player, and she's going to be there for 30 years. But she needs to know she's in the House, not in the Senate. And chasing down the leader of the Senate is not a good.
Beto O'Rourke, one of your favorites?
Well, you know, the bottom line, I enjoyed watching him get his teeth cleaned the other day. I thought that was really relevant to the dialogue going on in the country. So if that's what the Democrats put up, I worry about Ronald Reagan's 49-state victory margin. Trump may beat that record.
All right. Ed Rollins, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Up next, President Trump announcing a new, much more aggressive approach to missile defense.
We must be certain that our defensive capabilities are unrivaled and unmatched. We will terminate any missile launches from hostile powers. When it comes to defending America, we will not take any chances. We will only take action.
Fred Fleitz of the Center for Security Policy with us next with more. But before we go to break, take a look at the national debt. Yes, it's rising rather dramatically. We're coming right back right after this. Taiwan not backing down from China's threats to forcefully retake the island. Taiwan conducting large-scale military drills today, preparing for a possible Chinese invasion. Taiwan has called for international support to combat China's growing threats and out-of-control actions, as they put it. President Trump today at the Pentagon announcing his administration's new missile defense review. President Trump calling for an improved space defense system that includes sensors and weapons to detect and stop missiles upon launch. He also demanded 20 new ground-based interceptors to be installed in Alaska. The president hoping the improved missile defense strategy will help curtail Russia and China's growing and advanced weapons systems that now face the United States. Joining us tonight, Fred Fleitz, President, CEO of the Center for Security Policy, former Chief of Staff for the National Security Council. Fred, good to see you.
Good to be here.
Let's start with this missile defense system. The president committing to it, estimated $11 billion in new spending. How soon can we imagine that it'll be in place?
Well, it's going to take some time, but this is an important initiative because there are new technologies we have to deal with, such as Russia's new hypersonic missile, which is almost impossible to shoot down. China is improving its missile program, and there have been huge advances in the Iranian and North Korean missile programs. Lou, North Korea could hit the east coast of the United States with a missile today. The accuracy they're still working on, but it is a real threat, and I think this program is going to help deal with that.
Help deal with it. The president working to negotiate a denuclearization of North Korea. The suggestion is that a second summit could occur within a month or so. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, critics are always criticizing the president for the North Korea strategy. Let's keep in mind there haven't been any missile tests or nuclear tests since late 2017. This is a significant step forward. I think the North Koreans are close to making some minor concessions. They've certainly been dragging their feet. The purpose of a new summit is to get Kim to reaffirm his commitment to what he agreed to in Singapore.
You know, I have to tell you, this is to me a process game that's being played. It's unbecoming, if you will, to the Trump administration. This is the stuff of diplomats playing at getting something done. This is a president all about getting this done and talking about reaffirming language and blah, 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 blah. that usually leads to confrontation. And we've got a whole history with North Korea of precisely that result. Do we not?
Well, the North Koreans know that if they hold out long enough, we're going to give them a concession, and that's not going to happen under President Trump or Mike Pompeo or John Bolton. That's why these talks have been so difficult. President after president have played this game and lost with the North Koreans, and right now I think it's on a good trajectory.
Because it's not a game. It is life and death, and it should, I don't think anyone in Washington should try to perpetuate the nonsense that has been the purview of the State Department with this president. I don't think it will work out well for them or for, frankly, the country. Let's turn to something you brought up, which was the hypersonic missiles that are being developed by both Russia and China. How in the hell is it that the United States would have to say, our Defense Department, that we do not have an adequate defense against such weapons? Hell, we don't even have such weapons. How could this be?
Well, I'll tell you one reason is because the Obama administration devastated our missile defense program. It was still inadequate, but they brought it down so much that even Obama officials had to rebuild some of it because of the North Korean threat. What's being done with this new initiative by President Trump, we're going to have space-based interceptors that will be able to strike these missiles in the boost phase when they're most vulnerable, when there is a plume that's hotter and larger than any time of the missile's launch. It gives us a good chance of shooting them down. It's a very important initiative.
And Taiwan, the continued bellicosity, the threats from mainland China against Taiwan, where are we headed? And just how serious do you think the Chinese are in creating a real conflict?
Well, on one hand, the new Taiwanese president is not using the traditional ambiguous language on Taiwan's independence. But we can't blame this on her. This is China up in the ante against Taiwan. China's not just engaging in belligerent rhetoric. It's trying to cut Taiwan off further from the business community, making them redraw their maps that Taiwan is part of China, redraw their business documents.
President after president has tried to avert their eyes from Taiwan and the threat of mainland communist China against them. We can no longer avert our eyes, can we?
I don't think we can avert our eyes, but we have to find a way to defend Taiwan, recognizing the huge surge in the Chinese military. And I know that there are people at the Pentagon.
You're saying that we should roll over?
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that we have to look at what the threat is and adequately defend Taiwan.
All right, Fred, as always, great to have you with us. We appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Fred Fleitz in the town of Tecumseh, about 2,400 miles from San Diego. Thousands of other migrants apparently aren't far behind, spending the night in Guatemala City. The caravan is moving quickly, we're told, picking up organized free rides along the way. That means governments are actually helping as these folks make their way northward. Joining us tonight, Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor, Fox Business contributor. Charlie, great to see you.
Great to see you, Lou.
Another caravan. And what is different this time?
It's truly amazing. And, you know, the most amazing thing about it is that we have a once legitimate party here in Washington that is unified around the idea that the border security, the crisis on the border is somehow a manufactured crisis. And when you see images
well, you know,
about
they're right about that, though. Yeah. Because the left has organized these caravans, the NGOs, the nonprofits, the political action groups, all have organized those caravans for political purposes.
Absolutely, but the point is that's not the point they're trying to make. Obviously, the point they're trying to make is
I was trying to help them, Charlie. I was trying to help them out.
that it's manufactured by the guy sitting in the White House, when in fact the guy sitting in the White House is the only guy that has occupied that chair, the only person in Washington with that kind of SWAT in the past 30 years who has said enough is enough. We want to do something about it. And the thing that just that troubles me the most is, when you look at these terrible stories about children dying, being dragged across the border by parents or by adults and dying on the border, the only way to fix that, the only way to stop that is to stop the illegal immigration. And if people like Nancy Pelosi actually cared about those people, she would get behind the effort to stop the event from occurring in the first place.
What does Nancy Pelosi care about? She doesn't care about those immigrants. She doesn't care about the Border Patrol. She doesn't care about American working men and women and her fellow citizens. She cares about votes, apparently, from the far left and rather peculiar constructs of what is in the national interest. Yeah. She does not want, under any circumstance, to serve the national interest. It is something to behold. She was on her way to Afghanistan, Charlie, and the president said, "Oh, we got to postpone that. I know you're taking off, you think, in about an hour, but you're not." Are you outraged, or do you applaud the president for so doing?
Yeah. In the end, I call them indentured voters, and that's what Nancy Pelosi cares about. That's what the Democrats care about at the end of the day. They care about the idea that they're getting millions of people from outside of the country. And I don't even, by the way, believe that those who come here legally or illegally all wind up voting for Democrats. If they come here and wind up being successful and they make money, as many of them will, they'll wind up being, they're not going to support Democrats anyway. They may not support the Republican Party, but they're not going to be Democrats. But the cynical
That's about the best the Republican Party can get right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
They won't be voting for Democrats. My question is, do you believe the president did the right thing, postponing Nancy Pelosi's boondoggle?
Of course, it was terrific, and it sent the message that Washington has been dysfunctional for a very long time, and so I think having these fights out in the open, I think it's a very healthy thing. I think it's very great, and President Trump made a very good point. If this is such a crisis in Washington that the government is shut down, and you are one half of the decision that's going to decide when to open the government again, why are you going on a junket for 10 days, a political junket for 10 days? Why aren't you staying here and working with me and figuring out a way to get the government open? And I think he wins it. And then of course you step back in the big picture. I always go back to the big picture. The principle that Donald Trump is standing on is the principle of securing the border. What is the big principle that Nancy Pelosi is standing for? I have no idea what it is. I haven't had a single Democrat explain to me what the big principle that Nancy Pelosi is standing for.
Steny Hoyer, her number two, explained one thing very clearly. He believes that borders are not simply to be ignored, that walls do work, in fact, that they're not immoral. This is a party right now that is imploding upon itself with conflict. And by the way, I can't wait to hear what the president does about the 757s that are escorting the Democratic elitists all around the country. You know, if they had to fly commercial on some, I think this is a grand idea the president has seized upon here, and may he have a laundry list of them. It's time for her to understand there are co-equal branches, and there are presidents. And Speaker of the House doesn't rise to that level. Charlie Hurt, great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Lou.
Thanks so much. Up next, U.S. officials floating the idea. Who are those officials? We'll take that up. They're talking about lifting tariffs and thinking somehow that would be the way to move forward in the trade dispute with China. How about that for stupid? Right after the break, I talk with Howard Public Policy Professor Ron Hyra. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Adults with moderate to severe RA
Good evening, everybody. Our top stories tonight. Shocking new evidence revealing just how closely the entire Russia witch hunt is linked to the bogus Trump dossier. That dossier, authored by the smear merchants Fusion GPS and former MI6 agent Christopher Steele. New testimony reveals DOJ official Bruce Orr shared intel and information from the dossier's author with prosecutors. Some of those prosecutors would go on to become top deputies to special counsel Robert Mueller. At the time, Bruce Orr making it clear that the phony document was nothing more than politically motivated opposition research funded by allies of the Clinton campaign and the DNC. We take up the implications of these latest revelations. Two of the best legal minds in the country joining us tonight, attorneys Victoria Tensing and Joe DeGenova. Also tonight, Nancy Pelosi, schooled in the perils of playing political games with President Trump. The speaker, smug, self-satisfied this morning as she prepared to depart on a boondoggle, bragging that the president had no response to her demand he delay his State of the Union address because of security concerns.
I'm not denying what Catherine Hall was saying. Let's get a date when government is open. But we haven't heard, as very silent, more than 24 hours to your question that you ask me every time I step out of the office. Have you heard? No, we haven't heard yet.
Well, she heard this afternoon. President Trump stopped Pelosi and her radical Dem cohorts about to go off on their little excursion in their tracks. You're looking at a U.S. Air Force bus that was supposed to take the congressional members on a junket trip overseas. The bus was to head for the airport and a military aircraft that would take them on their way. But the president stopping all of it, postponing, as he said, the trip, suggesting lawmakers' time would be better spent in Washington while they look for a solution with him to open the government and end the humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
They're on the way up, thousands and thousands of people. We don't know where they're from, who they are, nothing. We need strong borders. We need strong barriers and walls. Nothing else is going to work. Everyone knows it. Everybody's saying it now. It's just a question of time. While many Democrats in the House and Senate would like to make a deal, Speaker Pelosi will not let them negotiate. The party has been hijacked by the open borders fringe within the party, the radical left becoming the radical Democrats. Hopefully, Democrat lawmakers will step forward to do what is right for our country.
Well, they don't appear to be prepared to do so soon. As the shutdown continues and the political battle in Washington rages, the next migrant caravan is headed for the United States, creating considerable chaos in Guatemala, where authorities resorted to tear gas trying to bring the unruly and rioting members of that caravan under control. We take up the clash between a president determined to build a border security wall and a Democratic Party in total disarray. Republican strategist Ed Rollins, Washington Times opinion editor Charlie Hurt, among our guests here tonight. Our top story, new evidence tonight that the corrupt leadership of the FBI and the Department of Justice knew all about the links between the smear merchants, Fusion GPS, and the Clintons and the Democratic Party. And yet, they used that phony dossier to launch a witch hunt against the president. Fox News chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Herridge with the report.
Lou, the testimony from Justice Department official Bruce Orr matters because it moves up the timeline to the summer of 2016, 3 months before the FBI and Justice Department secured a surveillance warrant for a Trump campaign aide. And the testimony shows that Orr shared the information about the dossier and its author, Christopher Steele, with senior officials, including 2 prosecutors now with the special counsel. According to the transcript from Orr's closed-door interview last summer on Capitol Hill, he shared the intelligence with then FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, FBI agent Peter Strzok, FBI lawyer Lisa Page, and with senior Justice Department officials Bruce Schwartz, Zainab Ahmed, and Andrew Weissman. The last two, Ahmed and Weissman, are now assigned to special counsel Robert Mueller. According to the transcript, Orr was clear that he could not vouch for the credibility of the anti-Trump dossier. And he made clear that its author, British spy